Spetsnaz is an abbreviation of the Russian term for special purpose forces. However, the term Spetsnaz has come to describe all specialized units in the Russian military, law enforcement, and intelligence services. In a sense, Spetsnaz has the same meaning as special operations and is used broadly, much in the same way the term Special Operations Forces is applied to a range of U.S. units. Their legacy dates back to World War I, but it was in 1950 when the Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin himself approved the formation of the unit. These units' primary mission set include direct action, strategic reconnaissance, and unconventional warfare, much like the Green Berets of the U.S. Army, which was established around the same time. Spetsnaz, in general, are more comparable to the U.S. Army's 75th Ranger Regiment, a light infantry force, though some units are akin to Tier 1 units, like the U.S. Army's Delta Force. In this episode, we'll talk about the Spetsnaz units, what are their mission profiles, and how they differ. First up, we've got the GRU Spetsnaz. This covert unit is under command of the Russian Federation's main directorate of the General Staff of the Armed Forces. Basically, their version of the Pentagon's Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA. The GRU handles all things military intelligence, and their Spetsnaz units are the tip of the spear when it comes to espionage, recon, sabotage, counterintelligence, and even taking out high-profile targets. Earning a spot in the unit isn't just about checking the basic trainings box. Their training is brutal in many ways. Their emblem, a bat silhouetted against a globe, gives off serious Dark Knight vibes, symbolizing how they operate, stealthily, silent, and everywhere. Training isn't just about running laps or doing push-ups, it's an all-out mental and physical grind. And if that wasn't enough, they might even pick up some basic language, depending on where the unit is focused. But don't expect them to start giving fluent TED Talks unless they're transitioning to the GRU's full-on intelligent division. These folks are all about keeping it low-key and getting the job done. The GRU Spetsnaz have been around the block, pulling off missions in Angola, Beirut, Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Cambodia. During the Vietnam War, they pulled off an incredible heist that sounds straight out of a spy thriller. Picture this. A squad of just 9 operators sneak into a top-secret U.S. airbase in Cambodia. Their target? A shiny new Super Cobra attack helicopter. Not only did they swipe the chopper and ship it back to the Soviet Union, but they also made sure the rest of the helicopters on the base were destroyed. Alpha Group, or FSB Spetsnaz, is like a Swiss Army knife of special units. Part spy, part counterinsurgency, and part all-around badass commando squad. This Tier 1 unit falls under Russia's Federal Security Service, FSB. Fun fact, they were originally called A when the KGB whipped them up ahead of the 1980 Moscow Olympics. But the media gave them the nickname Alpha, and it stuck, and they made it official. Their first headline-grabbing mission, storming the presidential palace in Kabul during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Back in the 80s and 90s, these guys were everywhere, busting rebels, rescuing hostages, and taking out kidnappers. They even had the job of shielding Soviet leaders when things got dicey. Alpha isn't your typical military unit, and they're definitely not cops. The FSB runs its own show, with Alpha sporting unique ranks and badges. Today, the main unit has about 250 operators, plus a few small regional teams dispersed across the country. The group's broken into specialized departments, each with its own mission. They've been knee-deep in conflicts like the Chechen Wars and gained global attention for pulling off intense hostage rescues. Planes, trains, buses, you name it. They've saved it. Their motto? Win and come back. They have also got a VIP protection team for high-profile deployments in places like Afghanistan, the Middle East, and during militant hostage crises. Getting into Alpha Group isn't just tough, it's a whole other level. Doesn't matter if you're a cop or a Special Forces hotshot, everyone starts on the same playing field. The selection process is brutal, and training, it's a 3-year grind. Recruits tackle infantry tactics, parachuting, diving, sniper work, CQB, martial arts, and even foreign languages. If you make the cut, you're basically an action movie hero in real life. Next up, we've got another Tier 1 unit in the Russian Special Forces lineup, Directorate V of the FSB Special Purpose Center. You might know them by one of their many names, Spetsgrupa V, Vympel, or even the KGB's old Vega group. These guys are basically the quiet professionals you never see coming. Back in 1981, they were credited as Alpha Group's more aggressive, globe-trotting cousin, specializing in sabotage missions outside the Soviet Union. Fast forward to today, and their playbook has changed. Now, they're all about counterterrorism and safeguarding Russia's nuclear assets. They're likely been knee-deep in hotspots like Syria and the Ukraine too. Their emblem says it all. A sword piercing a shield with the Russian Cyrillic letters B as a V to us. Simple, sharp, and intimidating, just like their ops. This unit's so secretive that they've got a reputation as one of Russia's top-tier forces, capable of handling from anti-terror ops to guarding critical infrastructure and pulling off hush-hush missions for the state. Their roots go back to the KGB's Special Ops Division, and that old-school cloak and dagger vibe still runs deep. Training-wise, Vympel operators go through the same grind as their Spetsnaz brothers in FSB Alpha, but with an extra focus on counter-terror work. They are experts in CQB, stealth insertion tactics, and weapons mastery. The entry bar is high. You've got to put in at least 2 years with the regular Spetsnaz unit before even thinking about applying. Most of their missions are highly classified, but here's what we do know. They specialize in deep cover intel gathering, covert ops behind enemy lines, taking down strategic targets, boarding enemy vessels, and securing diplomatic outposts. These guys are the ultimate shadow warriors, quiet, deadly, and always on mission. The 45th Guard Spetsnaz Brigade is the only Spetsnaz unit that rolls with the Russian Airborne Forces VDV. Based just outside Moscow, these guys have been doing their thing since 1994, starting as an independent regiment and leveling up to a full brigade in 2015. Their job? Secure the landing zone behind enemy lines and prep it for VDV's big arrival. And if they need to, they'll hit command posts, mess up enemy plans, and even take out high-value targets. Basically, they're the ones you don't want waiting for you on the other side. These guys have even crossed paths with their Western counterparts. In 2001, they worked shoulder to shoulder with America's Green Berets in Kosovo, hunting down Albanian rebels along the border. Mark Giacona, a Green Beret on these missions, had nothing but respect for his Russian counterparts, calling them badasses in spirit. For 6 months, they shared the grind, tackling forests and mountains together like a scene straight out of an action movie. Back in May 2012, 22 soldiers from the 45th packed their bags and hit up Fort Carson, Colorado to train with the U.S. 10th Special Forces Group. In the First Chechen War, the 45th pulled off some next-level tactics during an assault on Grozny. Chechen militants couldn't believe what hit them. These operators quietly swept through the city, taking over buildings one by one. By the time the motorized infantry rolled in, whole Chechen units had just vanished. It was like they'd been erased off the map, leaving behind nothing but silence. Naval Spetsnaz, aka Russia's Commando Frogmen, are the Navy's silent operators. Technically, part of the Russian naval infantry, their missions are controlled by the GRU, making them both elite and elusive. These guys trace their roots back to World War II, where they played a crucial role in the Soviet victory, and they've been leveling up ever since. Their main gig? Keeping Russia's naval facilities and warships locked down tight. These frogmen split into 2 squads, the Naval Special Reconnaissance, OMRP, and the Combat Against Underwater Incursion Forces and Devices, PDSS. First up, the OMRP. These are your stealthy underwater guardians, recon divers, who make sure the Navy fleet stays untouchable. Each unit is about 200 strong and includes combat swimmers whose job is to protect ships and other fleet assets like their lives depend on it. Then there's the PDSS. These folks are like the Swiss Army knife of the naval infantry. They're trained for land and sea ops behind enemy lines, with skills in underwater combat, mine laying, clearance diving, and special reconnaissance. But they don't stop at the splashy stuff. When war breaks out, they shift gears, rescuing people, patching up damaged ships, clearing river crossings, and even recovering bodies from the sunken wrecks. And if that's not enough, they'll also train rebel groups to fight the enemy. These recon teams work in the shadows, hitting key enemy spots like bases, ports, airfields, and communication hubs. Joining the naval Spetsnaz isn't just hard, it's borderline insane. Training so brutal, it's not unusual for candidates to black out mid-session. They've got to learn underwater navigation in pitch darkness, scuba and freediving, and a whole lot of combat training. From sneaky sea infiltrations to silent underwater demolitions, only the fittest, toughest, and most determined make the cut. Taking a page from the playbook of Western Special Operations Forces, in 2013, the Kremlin decided it was time to build its own version of the US Army's Delta Force. Enter the KSSO, Russia's Special Operation Forces, an elite unit with a sleek acronym and a fast-growing rep. Their first big gig? The 2014 seizure of the Crimea. They didn't just join the party, they kicked the door in. The unit was front and center, leading the charge to snatch the Crimean Parliament in a blitz that left everyone else scrambling. From there, it was on to Syria in 2015, where they leveled up even more. Their missions have included everything from recovering the black box of a downed Su-24M. They conducted missions in calling in precision cruise missile strikes, ambushing enemy forces, taking out high-value targets, and delivering payback strikes against specific groups. Part of Russia's broader Spetsnaz community, the unit fits into a much larger puzzle of special forces that stretches across the land, sea, and air branches of the military, plus intel agencies like the FSB. Their secret sauce? It's all about the team. Instead of focusing on individual hotshots, they train as a cohesive unit. Each detachment gets its hands dirty with core skills like parachuting, mountaineering, diving, urban warfare, and guarding top brass in combat zones. Sniper training? That's another area where they've doubled down, throwing serious cash at both gear and talent. The KSSO also comes with its own aviation command and combat support setup, giving them the tools to operate totally off the grid. These guys are designed to work independently, whether it's sneaking behind enemy lines or pulling off high-stakes missions in hostile territory. The KSSO is proving it's not just a copycat. It's a force to be reckoned with. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and comment if you want more videos in this series.